Alright, greetings everyone. This video is going to be a little different. I am working on a big project in which I am designing my own paper miniatures to go with a particular tabletop game. Let's get to designing some giant rats. For starters, I surfed the internet to get some ideas just to get a simple sketch on a small notepad. I didn't film this because I'm not super great at sketching, and there would just be a bunch of footage of me erasing and starting over and erasing and starting over again. Then I took a simple photo with my iPhone and sent the image to my iPad so I can load it into Procreate. I like to use this Baskerville ink brush on a new layer, and I'm just going to trace an outline of the drawing to get a clean image. From there, I can export it as a Photoshop file and send it to my desktop computer. I think that is crazy handy that Procreate can export in Photoshop files. So here we are in Photoshop, and as you can see, there are already 3 layers set up for me. For starters, I wanted a perfectly round eye just to have a really intense look on the rat and make it really creepy looking. So I'm going to take the vector shape tool and place an eye in the composition. With the vector shape tool, you can easily change the color of the inside and the outline thickness all in one time. I want to take a solid color and create a cutout edge around the rat. With the line art layer selected, I'm going to just pick a bright red color just to see if it works right first, and then use the paint bucket tool and fill in the outside. It looks like that worked okay, so I'm going to change the color to a white and repeat the paint bucket tool. This is just something that I like to do with my own fun illustrations. I like to find free textures online, or I like to just go outside and find and take photos of my own textures and put them in compositions. So here's some fur, and first I would like to add an adjustment layer just to convert this image to grayscale. And there are several ways you could do this next process, but I like to use the levels adjustment layer just to make the whites whiter and the darks darker. And then I will repeat the same process for this leather texture that I will use for the skin. Back to the rat. Now that I have a white cutout around the figure, I can create a new layer under the white and import this fur texture. Then I'll just move around the texture until it looks right. With the texture layer selected, I can apply a mask. When using a mask, you can take a black paintbrush and erase any areas that you don't want the texture to show up. Let's go ahead and add another texture layer and repeat the same process. I'm not worried about that hard line in between the 2 textures at the moment. And with the same brush, since I have a soft edge applied to it, I can erase and blend the 2 textures together. And then I can just repeat this process until I have all the textures needed for this project. So I almost forgot, I'm going to go back to Procreate and alter the front image to make it look like a back image. For this next step, I printed the images out on some 65-pound cardstock. I could totally do all this coloring in Photoshop or Procreate, but personally I just enjoy painting and I want to do this with a real brush. Plus, I'm not totally against AI art. It has its uses when you need it, but humanity itself is just in danger of forgetting how to do stuff, so doing things like this is just helpful and fun. And another bonus, I'm going to use the same speed paints that I use on all my other models, so it's going to help tie things together when everything is on a tabletop. Through experimentation, I found that about 4 drops of water for every 1 drop of speed paint makes for a nice watercolor. I tried doing the same mixture with some strong tone just to add some shading into the composition, and it looks great at first, but after it dries, it tends to lighten up and you can't really tell the difference between all the colors. I will show you how I kind of corrected this later on in this video. I like to also take a few notes just for future reference. I scanned all the paintings back into the digital world and I put them back in Procreate. I'm going to use a black watercolor brush and add the shading back in. Now back in Photoshop, I'm going to create a new layer and totally black it in, so that I can use it later for an outline layer in Adobe Illustrator. Alright, so here we are in Adobe Illustrator, and as you can see, I have a bit of artwork here already on the side. These are basically shapes that I can use for reference, just for like scale conversion and such. Let's go ahead and bring the Photoshop file of the rat in. I'm not really sure how big a giant rat should be, but I'm going to go ahead and go with about shoulder height. Then I could bring the back image of the rat and put it in at the same height. There are easier ways to do this now that I'm watching this and recording this voiceover, but it requires a little bit of planning. But yes, there are easier ways to do this. You just have to kind of plan ahead. And then finally I will bring the black silhouette image and adjust it to the same height. Okay, I like to make a few copies of things just in case I mess up, but the silhouette image is currently a raster image and I want to convert it into a vector image. So I will image trace using the silhouette option, and now it will change it to a vector image. That way I can add color, whatever color I want or whatever size I want of just the image and the border. So then I can drop it back behind the rat and make a nice thick border that I can adjust anytime. I think I'll also add just a few boxes here and there just to fill in some gaps. Now I'll just make a few adjustments just so I can add the base in. Now I think it's fun just to take the color picker tool and recolor the base to match the miniature. And then I'll add a box for a cutout guide. Then I'll select everything that has to do with the rat miniature and make a copy of everything. And then I'll object, transform, and reflect horizontal that will mirror the rat. Then using the layers, I can turn off the front and back side of the rat. From there, I can do a simple layout and do a print test. If you like what you see, please consider giving this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. You may also follow Square Table Union on other social networks like Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Patreon. So here I have some print tests on some 65-pound glossy photo paper. I like to try to use some semi-gloss sometime, but I just couldn't find it at the moment. I also decided last minute to add some solid black into the background of the minis. At first I'm going to do some simple cuts and go kind of wide around the miniatures. But then I will go in close around the sides of the bases. I'm going to go in just to make straight shots, and that way that will help me line up the folds correctly while I'm gluing. You could probably do this better with an X-Acto knife, but I'm just going to use scissors just because these are all test runs for the miniatures. You're going to want to have nice, clean, and straight bends for the bases, so I like to use a ruler and just line them up and press against the ruler just to make really nice crisp bends. At the top of the miniature, you want to just bend it just enough just to kind of get like the sense of how the miniature is going to go together when you glue it up and put it back together. Make sure that the feet or the bases are folded up good just so that they don't get hit by the spray adhesive. I like to use a Super 77, but any spray adhesive will work. And then you just hold up one end of the figure and spray the other side with glue. It doesn't take a lot, so just kind of dab it a little bit, and with a good aim you can just lightly hit it. You can actually use your thumb to cover the bottom of the base that you're holding just to protect it, just so it don't get glue on the bottom. And then after you spray with the glue, just line up the bottom of the bases and pinch together starting from the base and work your way up to the top of the miniature. Sometimes if you make good cuts, it is easier to line up the bases from the bottom. Okay, so I hit this with some spray glue off camera, but then I'm going to match the bases up, and then I'm just going to do a pinch movement all the way up to the top of the miniature. And then you can go back in close and trim around the mini just as close as you are comfortable with. I just realized that the back of the rat is on both sides of this printed version, so I need to go back and fix that in the final version. So then it is always nice to go back with a black Sharpie and just clean up the edges. I think I'll go ahead and build out this zombie while I'm at it. So I hit this with glue, and I left it apart just so you can see on camera how I'm going to line the base back up again and then fold upwards.